some more people that are joining us. And so welcome to the Computer Science Education in Tennessee panel discussion. I'm just going to help set things up, and then I'm going to turn it right over to our panelists. But my name is Charlie Apigian. I'm the director of the Data Science Institute at Middle Tennessee State University, and an incredibly passionate and big advocate for computer science, technology, data science in our schools. And so I am humbled to be moderating today. And with us, I'd like to have our panelists who are part of the report go ahead and introduce themselves. And so Deborah, I'll let you start. And Deborah, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself to start things off for us.
Sure. Hi, I'm Deborah Knoll from the Tennessee Department of Education, and I am the Director of K-12 Programs and STEM Initiatives.
Go ahead, Keith.
Well, I'm Keith Jackson. I am a high school computer science teacher from Oak Ridge High School and also a facilitator for Code.org's Fundamental and Principles and the Tennessee Department of Education's Digital Readiness Standards.
Yeah.
I am Meka, Egwuekwe, Executive Director at CodeCrew. We are a nonprofit based in Memphis that teaches kids and adults to write software.
I'm Alexis Harrigan. I'm the Director of State Government Affairs for Code.org. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much to our four panelists, but also let's think about those that are in the background. And those that are in the background are our four tech councils that are helping to make this happen today. And that's our Chattanooga Technology Council, the Greater Nashville Technology Council, the Greater Memphis IT Council, as well as the Knoxville Technology Council. And because of them, this event is going on. It's a joint event. And as somebody that has been seeing the collaboration of these four tech councils, it's been great to see the entire state really rally behind computer science. And so really this all started with an idea that was actually from the House Bill Public Chapter number 454, House Bill 1339. And in there were three main objectives that needed to occur, and all computer science related. The first was that there had to be a state plan for computer science. The second was to set strategic objectives, and there were 6 specific ones that the report had to address. And of course, you can go read those in the report to be specific. And then the final thing was to submit a state plan from a group of peers from across the state that really created recommendations as well as where we are today and where we can go with computer science in K through 12. And that report was due May 1st, 2020, and it was delivered. And because of that, we are sitting here today. And so first of all, big kudos to the 21 people that were part of that. And 4 of them are on the call with us today. So Deborah, if you don't mind, why don't you start us off by just telling us, really any other background that you feel is important, but also where Tennessee is today in terms of computer science.
Sure. Thank you, Charlie. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sound great. Okay,
perfect. So I just want to start by saying we have really come a long way here in Tennessee in regards to computer science. Back in 2015, it really started when we kind of revamped all of our CTE courses. So we really ensured that we were aligned to what the labor market was showing us. We were aligned to, what was needed in the state. So we created programs of study in coding, in web design, networking, and cybersecurity. So that's kind of where it all started. From there, we really kind of dove right into the AP computer science world. We partnered with Code.org as a regional partner with them back in 2017 to really kind of amp up the AP Computer Science world in education. And so we spent about 3 years in that pilot. From there, the TSIN, which is the Tennessee STEM Innovation Network, has really become our partner. So they have kind of taken over that partnership with Code.org, and they continue to expand it. And so instead of having just one training in the summer, we're doing regional trainings to really expand the access across the state and to expand our numbers. Not only that, we've seen that there was a need for K-8 digital readiness standards as well. And so those have been created back in 2018. We did like a soft implementation last fall, but this summer we have kind of rolled out official professional development around those K-8 digital readiness standards. So that's kind of where we are. Future Force Initiative, we've had a huge support not only from the Commissioner of Education, but from Governor Lee as well. And that is shown right through his budget allocation with something called the Future Workforce Initiative. And so that's money allocated through his budget to really expand STEM and computer science across the state.
Of course, one of the most important components of any initiative like this is going to be the teachers that we have in place. Mm-hmm. And so, Keith, can you just talk as one of those individuals and as somebody that's been helping to lead us as we continue to move forward?
Well, Charlie, first of all, I'm going into my 20th year of teaching computer science, and I've seen a major growth in Tennessee. So, you know, I just kind of looked at, I teach AP, I teach many AP classes, and the AP is the easiest way to look at data. And so I looked at like this past year in 2019 in Tennessee, we had over 1,500 students take an AP test, which may not seem like a lot, but if you look at 5 years ago, before a new AP class started, the principals, we were only at 355. And even looking back to 10 years ago, we were at 90 students in 2010 took an AP test. So the growth has happened, and it's really because of initiatives with our partners, with professional development, with getting the word out that we need to do it. But I'm excited as to where we're going.
Deal. And somebody that has been doing some pretty innovative things and has been part of helping us out as well, kind of from the outside, but really on the inside as well because of his incredible passion, is Meka. And so Meka, just you know, from your lens, where do you see Tennessee today, and where are we going?
Well, I'm excited about these positive steps we've been making statewide. So like Keith a moment ago just spoke about the growth in AP computer science in Tennessee. I think that's tremendous, and I want to see that trajectory continue. And I love that we've now got this statewide plan and a lot of good elements in it that I'm anxious for us to begin to implement. And so we have been you know, challenged, if you will, because many of our neighboring states have jumped on the computer science specific bandwagon a little earlier than us, but I think we have shown that we're willing to compete, and this statewide plan is a great first step to demonstrate a lot of great initiatives that we'll be hopefully implementing in the short and medium term.
Gotcha. Deborah, I'm going to go back to you a little bit just to get a little bit more of the history of where we have been and where we're going. And you know, you have some great experience and knowledge of where we've been. And, you know, think of it, you know, Keith mentioned, was it 2010, where we had only 90 students in computer science. What has been that maturation over the last 10 years?
Yeah, so there has been a huge uptick in an interest in computer science from our districts, from our schools. We see a huge increase in those taking our CPE courses as well, in both coding, networking, cybersecurity, and web design. And so, yeah, great numbers. And like Keith mentioned, the AP Computer Science. So the CPE courses, we do embed those as an option because we do see the value of both the AP Computer Science Principles and the AP Computer Science A. So we looked at people like Keith in the classroom to ensure that our standards are aligned. We looked to industry individuals like Meka and Alexis to ensure that our standards are, relevant in today's world, aligned to labor markets. And so I just feel like it's a huge collaboration between a lot of different parties, what we're seeing. So.
Yeah, and as somebody that I consider myself an outsider, I've definitely been able to witness that. And when I've wanted to be part of that, it's been open arms because we need help. We want to get more kids into more tech-related fields. I think before we continue on, I think we want to get to our first poll question. And that means there has to be some magic behind the scenes. And I'm assuming Dominique and Alex, who are on the call with us, it looks like it just popped up. So everybody should see that, and this will help drive some of our conversation today. And the question being, should every high school student be required to take a computer science course, or just those that have selected a CTE path that requires computer science? So we're seeing people go ahead and answer that, and we'll let that go for a little bit. And I think as we finish this, Keith, I'm going to throw it to you again. And the only thing I'd like you to do is, everybody probably is very knowledgeable on this call, but just give a little bit of what is AP versus CTE, so people know that CTE is a pathway versus anything else. And looks like we're about done. And if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the results. I think that means people will see, but basically 85% of the people on this call do believe that all high school students should be required to take a computer science course. So Keith, can you help me out just understanding what is a CTE pathway versus an AP course?
Well, I love that there's 85% that think that
Me too.
they should take it. So, but no, like an AP is set up by the College Board, and for the students that take an AP class, an advanced placement class, they have a choice to take a test at the end, and if they pass that test, they can receive college credit for those. So at first we had the Computer Science A, which was very small. Now we've added in Principles, which I love because it's a much broader, it's much more open to people besides just programming. And I spit out some statistics from the AP before because it's very easy to get that data from it. But there's intro classes that I teach at high school. I truly believe everybody should take a class. Now, is it going to be an AP class that they need college credit? Does not need to be, but I think everyone should be exposed. But there are these CTE pathways, like Deborah mentioned before. There's many. Computer science is very, very broad. Mm-hmm. We only have 2 AP classes, which is not a lot. So there's many different paths that we have now in the state for them to go. And I think one of the fastest growing and one of the more important is cybersecurity. So, and I want to look into that more.
Yeah. And so, Deborah, if you want to add anything to CTE and exactly what that goes, I know you've been actively involved with the development of, well, all of them.
Yeah, so I just want everyone to understand that Tennessee is a really unique state in that 98% of all high school students take a CTE course, and of those students, close to 50% concentrate in CTE. So, we're about 46 to 48% concentrate in CTE, which means they are taking 3 or more courses in those CTE programs of study. So that is a huge percentage for Tennessee. So I just wanted that to be known. All high school students are required to take, a 3-course pathway, an elective focus. And so with that is a huge part of CTE for Tennessee, including our IT courses. So we've seen a huge uptick in students taking those IT courses.
So we are a little bit unique, and I obviously, especially with those different pathways. So Alexis, how unique are we, and what do we look like regionally as well as nationally in what we're doing computer science-wise.
Thanks, Charlie. So I have shared a few slides with the group today, and all of this information can be found at advocacy.code.org. So what I do on the advocacy team is I oversee lobbying and policy work to advance K-12 computer science education. And the way we do that, the way we achieve the goal of having all students having access to computer science, especially focusing on historically underrepresented student groups, is by a 9 policy plan. So on the screen, you'll see these are our 9 Code.org policies that we encourage states to adopt. And we've been able to show with statistical significance that with the implementation of these policies, a greater number of students are actually taking high school level computer science courses. We've also been able to show, there's preliminary studies out with the NSF funded research that students who are taking computer science in the younger grades actually are more likely to perform better on statewide assessments in math and science as well. So there's many reasons to take computer science, and we're preaching to the choir here, but these are the 9, and I'll actually go into them a little bit more and talk about comparisons. So if we can go to the next, in Tennessee, the 2 stars here that you see, implementing a certification pathway and allowing computer science to satisfy a core graduation requirement, usually for math or science, is what Tennessee has using our Code.org rubric. Next slide, please. So when we started our advocacy work nationally back in 2013, only a handful of states had policies on the books already focused on computer science specific K-12 education. Just in this last year, we've finally reached the nifty 50, as we like to call it. All 50 states now have at least one of the Code.org 9 policies to expand access to computer science education. And as you can see on this map, Tennessee was an early adopter of policies early on before it was popular. Next slide, please. So here is where it does get interesting, and where Tennessee, I think, has fallen a little bit short, especially when you look at the region. So as I mentioned, we have 9 policies. Your neighbors to the east there, Arkansas, are doing pretty well, and they were actually the first to adopt all 9 policies and have gone well above and beyond. Deborah is doing fantastic work at the department and has a small and mighty team. Arkansas, by comparison, has a director overseeing computer science that reports to the governor, and then has regional centers and regional hubs and many, many staff. So most states only have 1 person doing this work, and Arkansas has dozens of people focused on this work. But then when you start looking at Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, the Carolinas, you're still seeing a lot more of the policy implementation going on. And what's really interesting to me is that this isn't a partisan issue. This isn't Democrat or Republican. We have governors, part of our coalition, on both sides of the aisle. And really what we've seen is needing a champion to take on this work at the legislative or executive level. So what's really exciting is that in this last budget proposal, the governor actually did include computer science as a priority in his workforce initiatives. The department is taking on some tremendous work. So I'm really hopeful to see what the future holds. And we'll just spend a few minutes now going through the policies themselves. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Alex. So on the state plan, these have not been updated as of 2020 because several states, including Tennessee, are still going through legislative sessions. So this was accurate as of January of 2020. So Tennessee was in the process of adopting a state plan. I have broken this news to the department, and unfortunately, we cannot yet classify the plan that many of you have already reviewed as a state plan for computer science education. There's a lot of great recommendations in there. Those of us on this call worked really hard on the plan, but unfortunately, almost all of the timelines on the plan were taken now, and we can't count a plan to have transparency or accountability if there's no timelines with those actions. In the plan, in the report that you've all seen, The only item that has any sort of timeline is the all high schools offer. But beyond that, none of the other recommendations have timelines attached to them. Next slide, please. So this one is another tricky one, and Deborah was exactly right. Tennessee is different, is a little unique. The K-8 digital readiness computer science standards were passed last year, and that was fantastic. Unfortunately, most states, the way that they do their standards is based on either primary or secondary. So in this case, secondary would be high school and middle school, but in the case of Tennessee, it was K-8 and then high school standards. Tennessee doesn't have computer science level standards as we know them in most other states. What Tennessee has is grade band specific standards. Course specific standards, excuse me. So each course has standards attached to it. And I actually would argue that in some ways, Tennessee is going well above and beyond because they're aligning to the industry need for those CTE standards and are being updated every 3 years. When there's a Q&A later, I'm sure Deborah can answer a little bit more about that, but Tennessee does not have K-12 standards per our rubric. Next slide, please. Next is funding for professional learning. This is a TBD right now. As I mentioned earlier, the governor did include in his executive budget proposal funding for computer science professional development, funding for code.org in particular through the TSIN program, but that has yet to pass. And in most states across the country, we're actually seeing pretty drastic cuts. So I'm not incredibly optimistic that we're going to see that dedicated professional learning. The other piece that I want to point out is I do advocacy and I advocate for computer science, but I actually don't advocate just for code.org specific computer science curriculum. We want to make sure that districts and schools have the option to pick the type of professional development that works best for their teachers and their circumstance. So we would love to see Tennessee offer professional development that's through competitive grants to multiple providers, not just code.org. And I say this as somebody working for arguably the largest provider for computer science professional development in the state. It's important to offer more opportunities for districts. Next slide, please. Certification. So this is where Tennessee has been doing this for a while. Certification basically means, is there a pathway for teachers to become certified to teach computer science, in particular at the high school level? Next slide. Pre-service teacher preparation. This just means that there are opportunities for pre-service teachers, meaning teachers who are, that usually means teachers who are in college or students in college ready to go into the teaching profession, that there's an option for them to start becoming familiar with computer science, either taking computer science training, doing a cross-listing with a computer science minor and a education major. Right now, there's no dedicated program in any public universities in Tennessee that offers a student that opportunity. So if you're graduating from high school and you say, I want to become a computer science teacher when I grow up, there's not a clear pathway for you to do that going through college. Next slide. And then the state CS supervisor, as I mentioned, Deborah is doing fantastic work. Most states that are in purple, all the states that are in purple here, excuse me, they have a full-time person dedicated at least 50% of their time to computer science, if not 100% of their time. And computer science is actually in their job description within the Department of Education. And then requiring all high schools to offer. This was, I believe, the strongest recommendation in the report that was sent out, that Tennessee has a long way to go. We are starting to track now. Tennessee was one of the states we didn't have information on what percentage of high schools were offering the computer science course. We will be able to report on that information come the fall through our annual CS access report. But this is where, if we can get this policy going and fund it, we'll see a lot of progress in Tennessee. And then this is the last one, I believe. This is a core graduation requirement. Blue means that districts can determine whether or not they will allow computer science to count towards a math or science graduation requirement or a flex credit, which would count as electives. And then the purple means that it's a statewide policy. And so Tennessee is doing a great job there. Oh, and this, I'm sorry, this is the last one. The core admissions requirement, again, Tennessee is falling behind the region here. It basically has alignment with institutions of higher education to allow a high school computer science course to count towards a math or science admissions requirement. And I believe that APCSA counts for some universities in Tennessee, but the vast majority don't recognize the admissions for higher ed. All of this information, as I mentioned earlier, can be found on our website. We actually have all of these slides available open source, so feel free to use them. And you can go to advocacy.code.org. And for those of you who are interested in advocating for any of these policies, if you go and click on that orange button at the bottom, take action in your state, it'll actually direct you to a form page, and you can customize it, and it'll send an email straight to your governor, your legislator, your senator, with your advocacy via email.
Great. Thank you, Alexis, for showing us, we are making amazing strides, but we have to take this seriously and have real work we still have in front of us as we continue to, get technology, computer science, and other tech-related fields at the forefront for our education. I think, Keith, it's a good time to really talk about what are we doing in terms of professional development for our teachers, and how are we going to get enough teachers to be able to teach this? It's one thing to just say, hey, every school is now going to have computer science, but who's going to be those individuals with those students in the future? And how are we addressing that?
Well, one thing going off of Alexis from code.org, I was privileged to be able to start working with code.org in 2014. And it was actually in the state a very grassroots movement. They give me the autonomy to go out and start doing workshops, me as a high school teacher with elementary. So I was doing K through 5, and I was allowed to really reach out to the nonprofits, the people to work with, to do workshops. So TSIN helped a lot. I found like the library system in Tennessee is there are people that are underutilized. Like that's really part of their goals is to reach out. The Nashville Technology Council hosted me to do workshops. So what was great with that is reaching these kids. What I found was reaching these children at the K through 5 level, reaching these teachers at a K through 5 level. What I found was whether I was in inner city Chattanooga or in rural Hawkins County, we have some great teachers in Tennessee.
Yes,
we really do. And they want what's best for their students. They want what's best for their kids growing up. So, with that, within the next couple of years, what I'm truly proud about is that when code.org started a model of separating out their workshops to the different regions, the Department of Education was the regional partner. We were the only one in the country. There was many nonprofits, but we were the only one where the Department of Education was our regional partner. So now all of a sudden we go from this grassroots to we can reach all levels to it. Mm-hmm. So now with that extra support, we have a K through 12 support with code.org. We're doing the principals. I'm actually starting on Monday. I've got 55 new teachers that are coming in from around the state that are going to be ready to teach principals come fall. So that's another AP class added onto it. And at the same time, we're continuing the effort with the elementary and with the middle school. So I think we're hitting all of those levels right now. So it's just really like, let's step on the gas pedal as we're doing it.
Yeah, and I know, Meka, I'm going to ask you a couple of poignant questions about, what are some of the different things we can do at different levels, and we'll get to that. Deborah, I'd like to see if you have anything you want to add to that. And one question I do have is, you guys had a report come out, I think it was a year ago, about digital readiness, and incredibly eye-opening for me to see what what we think of as digital readiness. So I'd also like to just have you talk a little bit about what that is and what we plan to do with digital readiness as well.
Yes, so absolutely. So the digital readiness standards are K-8 standards. The elementary portion and the K-5 portion are really standards that can be easily embedded into everyday teaching. The middle school standards could be used almost as a standalone course, or something is like a arts, rotation, arts related type course. So those came out, like I said, a soft launch back last fall, and then we are now launching our professional development training. Here in June, we had over 900 teachers, administrators, and counselors sign up for that training, which is amazing, especially to have the support from the district administrators and counselors who want to go through that training as well to see how they can support their teachers. Because it was such a huge success, we're going to offer it again in July. And so, again, we expect a huge turnout, close to 900 teachers again in July to help train to those standards. So that is testament to the need of computer science professional development for teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, not everybody, when you take a AP computer science course, or if you're in a CTE pathway, has to become a programmer when they're done. I think we all just have to understand that every child that we have in K through 12 has got to have a data/tech acumen to everything that they're doing in the future. And I think that's really, when we start saying that we need computer science for all, what we're really saying is we need digital readiness. We need people ready to act from a tech and a data, digital. Sorry, I've always got data on my head, being a data science guy, but for all. And we all know that there's not going to be a single job in the future, there's not a field that is not going to need that digital readiness component to that, and I think that's really important. I think before we get into more specific areas, let's bring up our second poll question, and then Meka, I'm gonna bring it over to you here. It looks like we've got it up. It's what is an appropriate age group for TN students to first be exposed to computational skills? And I notice in the womb is not on there, so you have to go with everything else. It looks like everybody's answering that. Appreciate it.
Well, I don't want to bias the answer.
We better give it a second here. Let's see how we're doing. It looks like almost we're at about 63%, and we'll get that up here. And then once Alex closes it, Meka, I'll throw it over to you. And really, it goes to a couple of things. It's not just about what are we doing at the different levels, but what is computational thinking and things like that. And we'll throw it to you.
Sure. So, when I introduced CodeCrew, our nonprofit in Memphis, I said that, we teach kids and adults to write software, but really what we do is we teach kids and adults to think computationally, right? Because we look at these components of computational thinking, things like pattern recognition, things like algorithms, things like abstraction and generalization, things like decomposing large problems into smaller ones. We recognize that those are necessary to be effective in computer science, but those things are not limited to computer science. Those are skills that you can apply across subjects. And that's why we think that, that's why we love and appreciate computer science. The reality of today that computer science education is just simply foundational to modern education, as foundational as photosynthesis or electricity is taught in schools today. And so we're big advocates for kids at all grades having access to computational thinking as part of their curriculum. I saw the poll came up. Maybe we announce the results, and then I have a few more thoughts. Oh, okay. Well,
Sorry, I muted myself. Oops, did we get the, are you guys seeing
Yep.
the kindergarten one? Okay.
I see.
So we've got 58% kindergarten to second grade, third through fifth came in second at 34%, so not a surprise. And I think that really goes well to what you're saying about computational thinking. Something that I was really impressed with is when I started working with schools. I've had a lot of experience with Rutherford County as well as Williamson County. And when I started going into those schools, first of all, I think it was Keith mentioned how amazing the teachers are. Let's not forget that your CTE directors are just absolutely amazing people that think outside the box. And I don't know if we have them on the call today, but Jeremy Qualls in Williamson County, as well as Tyra Pilgrim, I have been working with over the last few years, have just been absolutely fantastic in wanting to do some amazing things. And just, you know, knowing that those schools think of it, they actually will say K through 5 is about computational thinking, getting them ready, getting them the ability to think logically as they go into middle school. And I think that's really important. So when I see that kindergarten through second grade, you know, are we teaching them Python code then? I hope. But it's more about getting them to think in the right way so that when you do get to that point, and it's just another side note, as somebody that teaches, and I get them as freshmen in college, what skills do I need them to have? It's not that I need them to have 10 years of programming experience. I need them to have computational thinking. I need them to be able to think logically and to not be scared when they fail, to be able to learn on their own. And these are the skills that I'm now seeing in K through 12 that I haven't seen before when I first started getting involved. And that to me is really exciting. Meka, is that some of the same things you're seeing as well?
It is, you know, and you can ask kids themselves, you know, that when you ask them about, well, is the amount of technology in their lives increasing or decreasing, they all go straight to the obvious answer that it's increasing. And they all recognize and agree that being able to, that growing up in a world that's increasingly digital, increasingly surrounded by computers and software means that they need to have an increasing understanding of these skills at an earlier and earlier level. And so I really appreciate, and I'm thrilled to see those poll results as well, because we think that there are ways, and we've implemented ways in Memphis at CodeCrew, how to introduce computational thinking to kids at young ages, as young as kindergarten, and we do that. And we think that that is, like I said, will have a positive impact on their other subjects. And we think that's also, you know, you mentioned computer science for all. That's so essential to computer science for all kids. We're thrilled that the Computer Science for All Summit is coming to Memphis this year, as a matter of fact, that national summit. But to have that in all grades is what we really advocate, because there are different levels and degrees of depth with respect to computational thinking, right up through 12th grade. Our model in Tennessee, we have a rich set of CTE courses in Tennessee for computer science. The only challenge we have compared to some of our compared to some other states is that if you don't choose the CTE path, you might not get much computer science at all in high school, right? And so if we can also address that gap in Tennessee, where we can get high school level rigor for computer science for those who don't necessarily want to pursue that as a career path, but can still benefit from computational thinking at that level, I think we'd achieve a dream come true status and ensure that every child, regardless of background, whether they're underrepresented or not, has that. That's a big reason why CodeCrew exists.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just, you know, because I do believe that it's not K through 12s. They're not the only ones that have to teach our kids technology. You know, I think there can be things outside of that. I believe there's incredible opportunities outside of the classroom as well. Just briefly, could you tell us what CodeCrew does and what you've been doing in Memphis?
Sure. So in the K through 12 space, we partner with schools to provide individuals with computer science degrees to go into the classroom, partner with teachers to teach computer science in schools as elective courses, elementary, middle, and high school. We also do a great number of after-school programs, including and summer programs. We're currently running the Memphis Grizzlies Code Camp, as a matter of fact. And then we have the largest youth hackathon in the Memphis area. Plus, we also train teachers to help prepare them for the practice exam so that they can pass that exam and be certified to teach computer science in schools. And increasingly, of course, we are big advocates of policy, including this particular report that came from the bill that we helped shepherd through the legislature. So that wide spectrum, that comprehensive approach is what we take to computer science education, because we believe in you got to run twice as fast as the ones in front. And I want to see Tennessee top of the list.
And Keith, I have a question for you, but before I ask you, I'm gonna throw it back to Alexis. And the one thing I'd like to just know is the states that are successful, how early are you seeing where they truly are doing things from a computer science standpoint within their schools? I mean, are you seeing K through second grade as part of that? Go ahead and elaborate.
So the number one reason that schools don't teach computer science is that there is not teachers trained to teach computer science in those schools. Google and Gallup have done surveys going back, I think, to 2014 or 2016. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. But 91% of principals believe that, or 91% of parents believe that computer science should be taught in K-12. A majority of principals in K-12 schools believe computer science should be taught. The issue really comes down to our teachers are stretched way too thin. They have so much going on, and to ask them to, out of their own pocket, pay for professional development to do training on the weekends during the summer is a big lift. So the states that do the best are the ones that offer full K-12 professional development to teachers, and then follow up with those teachers to make sure they're implementing what they've learned, particularly in K-12. So as Deborah mentioned earlier on the K-8 digital readiness standards, they're designed to be integrated. So we're not saying add additional time to the day in elementary school. We're saying integrated into math, into science, into reading. Sentence structure is an algorithm, and that computational thinking can be learned through the describing sentence structure to students, in first and second grade. So states that get that, and states that are training teachers that way are the ones that I think are setting their students up for success going into middle school and high school, because particularly for girls, for Latino, for Black students, for Native American students, if they don't have that exposure going into high school, they are so much less likely to take those classes in high school, and then even less going into college. And so just really quick, I want to give you a couple of quick stats on Tennessee. And again, you could find this on advocacy.code.org, just click on the Tennessee fact sheet. Tennessee has just under 11,000 open computing jobs, which is 4.6 times the average demand rate. If a lot of the members from the tech councils are on here, you all know this better than I do. You're the ones trying to fill these jobs. But then when we start looking into the salaries, the open salaries through those open jobs alone is $869 million in lost economic opportunity for the state of Tennessee, just Tennessee. But then what really is disturbing is, and this is not unique to Tennessee, this is a national problem, is the gender and racial and ethnic diversity for those jobs. So when you look at the students who are graduating from Tennessee universities, or let me step back. Of the students who took AP computer science exams in Tennessee, only 30% were female. And that's actually pretty good compared to what it was even just a few years ago. So that is tremendous progress, but it's nowhere near 50%. And then when you look at those exams that were taken by students of color, it actually becomes pretty stark. It's 1,500 exams approximately were taken for AP classes. Only 124 were Latino or Hispanic students, and only 206 exams were taken by Black students. That's really disheartening. And then when we look at going into, I'm just pulling up this information here, graduating students from only 63 schools, or I'm sorry, where we go. Tennessee did not graduate a single new teacher prepared to teach computer science in 2017. And in 2018, they actually didn't either. So that means students coming out of universities going into teaching, not a single one was prepared in that university to teach computer science. So we're having to take teachers who are teaching other things and then train them. And that takes more work than if you were to integrate it into the regular teaching profession. So the biggest issue, I think, is teacher training. TDOE is well on its way to do that. The governor is supporting this. But given COVID and drastic budget cuts happening in Tennessee and across the country, you know, it's one of those 2 steps back, 1 step forward situations that we're in this year.
Yeah, and obviously we have a lot of challenges just on what we're going to be able to do for this fall. Just to let everybody know that's on the call, you are more than welcome to ask some questions. We're trying to make it where we have a good, the last 15 or so minutes here of questions. So we're starting to get a couple to come in, but if you see at the bottom of your screen, you should have a Q&A button down there, and that's the best place to put your questions so that we can get them, and then I'll distribute those to our panelists here. Keith, hey, we just talked about teacher readiness and getting teachers ready, and what are you seeing from an experience and you know, from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade? What are some of those major challenges that you've seen that you haven't really talked about yet here?
What I've found, like working with the elementary teachers, actually up through K through 8, it's much easier for them to incorporate what they're already doing into computer science. I think and you mentioned this before, Charlie, like how do we find the teachers in high schools that are qualified to teach it? I don't have a computer science. I have a math. I can teach dual enrollment math. I cannot teach, you know, even though I've taught computer science for 20 years, I cannot teach a dual enrollment computer science class.
That's right.
So it's like, you know, right now we do have the license, you know, like this is awesome, like from the Department of Education, the people that go through the 5-day workshop, the whole year workshops with Code.org, with TSIN, with the Department of Education, they do get there is now a licensure standard. So now that not just anybody can teach computer science, we don't want that, but we still want a pathway where teachers can earn the way into teaching computer science. And I've seen, it's amazing. I've seen great computer science teachers that were English teachers. I've seen great computer science teachers that were foreign language teachers and math teachers, science from all around that become great computer science teachers. So it's really like, when I was going through college, that pathway wasn't there. You know, I just happened to land in the job because they needed a computer science teacher. So I think we're now looking at how can we get those teachers, you know, at the college level to get that standard, to get the qualifications they need to teach a computer science, whether it be K through 12.
Yeah. And Deborah, I'm going to throw it to you, and I know you probably have something also to add on that, but I'm going to also just add one other thing is we've had a question about the dual enrollment option. And if you want to mention that a little bit, and I have a lot of experience from the university side as well, but just some of, you know, the struggles that you've had, and then what is, you know, how has dual enrollment been accepted or not accepted, or where are we with that as well?
Yeah, so that dual enrollment question is kind of a tricky question because every post-secondary institution has their own policies around this. And so I know the question is, you know, utilizing that dual enrollment option will enable a scaled growth in computer science more than just training teachers. And in some areas it can. It's a great option to use to be able to have students then be able to take the computer science. But again, just like Keith was mentioning, I mean, there's great English teachers that can be great computer science teachers. And so while I think it's an option, and we always like to have different options because there are different needs around the state, I do think that it is still important that we train teachers, like we are training, but then also too kind of looking at when they go through their teacher prep programs and ensuring that we have some sort of training in place. And I know that this PC 454 document does go into that a lot. There are some recommendations around that, and I do think it is important. I do think teachers coming out of these ed prep programs to be trained and qualified in order to not only embed standards K through 5, but then be able to teach computer science in middle and then in high school as well, I think is very important, is opening up that pipeline. I think at the end of the day, we can all agree we need to open up the pipeline, and we just are going to have to think outside the box and get creative. But I do think PC 454 is a great starting place. The recommendations outlined in that for that.
That's great. Yeah, and you know, universities all do have different standards because we have an accreditation body that we are answering to, and each one of us has a little bit different one. So in our case, you have to have 18 credit hours, you know, to be able to say that you are qualified to be able to teach that, and you know, so it's different in each case. I want to get through some of these questions. We've now got some really good ones here. And Alexis, I'm actually going to probably start with you on this one. But we have a report. We have recommendations there. How does this report move us, move Tennessee beyond the two check marks that we have right now for code.org in terms of, you know, progressing?
Absolutely. So the remaining 7 recommendations are embedded into that report somehow, right? And so some of those are very strong. I would say the strongest, as I mentioned earlier, is requiring all high schools to offer computer science classes. We at Code.org, we don't advocate for, like the poll had suggested earlier with the question, we actually don't advocate for all students to take it. It would be great if that were the case. We just want to make sure every student has the option, because if every student has the option, that's the first step. Right now, it's a case of, you know, haves and have-nots. Suburban schools and affluent schools are much more likely to be offering these courses than rural and urban schools in every state in the country. So that's the first part. And then the second piece is, with these recommendations, it helps policymakers look at what options do exist and recommended by folks in education, in industry. So I was really impressed by the group that TDOE and Deborah helped pull together, because it gave perspective from so many different stakeholders in computer science education, from teachers, universities, and job creators. So there's a lot of interest in the state from legislators, from the governor's office, but you know, most of those folks don't come from education. They don't come from tech. They don't have a computer science background. So this essentially is giving them a roadmap to get to those 9 policies.
Okay, you know, Keith or Meka, you both, I think Meka, you've been doing this in Memphis, but we have a couple of people on the call today that are experienced IT professionals that would love to get into teaching. What is that path? And Keith, maybe you start with that a little bit. You know, so if you don't come from a teaching background, is there an option for somebody with a lot of experience to get into the teaching field? And then Meka, if you've had any experience with those individuals, I would love to hear about that. Go ahead, Keith.
Actually, I may not be the expert. Meka, Deborah may know that very, very well, since
Deborah?
That's her job to.
Sure. Go ahead, Deborah.
Yeah, so each one of our courses, we've identified appropriate endorsements that a teacher can hold in order to teach those courses. With that said, we also have, and I know this was a question in the chat there as well, about industry individuals having experience in tech jobs or having some sort of certification themselves in coding, being able to teach high school courses. And the answer to that is absolutely. There are stipulations around that, meaning they have to have so many years of industry service or a degree in computer science, those types of things. But they can get what's called an occupational license for teaching these courses in Tennessee. And so we have occupational licensed teachers that go through training to get them prepared to be into the classroom. But that is another avenue for teachers to teach computer science here in Tennessee as well.
That's good. That's good to know. Meka, if you
Can I throw out one thing? Can I throw out one thing besides just teaching computer science? I've got some great resources in my community of tech professionals. So also too are clubs. I have two different people. I have people that came in from Y12 and Oak Ridge National Lab that run I saw in the chat, like the Cyber Patriots. We have in the room I'm sitting in right now, we have a great Cyber Patriots set up that they come in and help with that. So there's many opportunities in each school, and that's just a couple of them.
Gotcha.
I can speak to the example that we've had, at least with CodeCrew in Memphis. We started as a single summer camp, right? That was totally dependent on software engineers who were working with us part-time while they worked their full-time jobs, and college students who were studying computer science at the University of Memphis or Lemoyne in college in different schools, serving as teaching assistants. And so we've been able to cultivate, an ecosystem, if you will, a pipeline of folks kind of on a part-time, or even volunteer basis, kind of seeing whether or not this is something they might want to do, and those and seeing whether or not it's something they can do, right? And then several of them have gone on to join us full-time now, and so that has been, a model that we put to use. So to what Keith suggested, for example, volunteering in an after-school program that's teaching coding, or even setting up a coding program in your kid's school, if you've got kids, or if you don't have kids, it's somebody's kid's school. This is a way, if you're interested in education, to kind of at least get your feet wet and see whether or not this is something you want to do, whether you have the aptitude to do it. Teachers, require a lot of patience, for example. I think a lot of parents learned that with the turn of COVID-19, for example. So, and so that's a model that we've done. Like I said, we've got a great network of 25 or more individuals now that we can tap on their shoulders to help us in different ways, and some of them have demonstrated that they really want to do this for a living, so they've joined us full time. In other parts of the state, like I said, I would recommend after-school programs and volunteering in schools as a way, and then of course the occupational license pathway. Obviously, that's a huge advantage for us in Tennessee. I don't believe every state is doing that. So, those are the ways I would recommend, certainly.
Yeah, and I think what I'd like to do is we're getting close on time. I'd like to finish a couple of our last questions here, and then I want to go around the panelists on what your call to action is for us as we go forward from here, because to me today's a starting point, not an end point. And so, what is those next steps for us? But on the point of teachers, I'll just read this one verbatim so it doesn't sound like I'm just coming up with this. But given the current salary of teachers, there's a risk that CS professional training will potentially cannibalize our teaching community as they seek IT roles. How do you address this as a state? I mean, as we start to give them the tech skills, there's a lot of jobs out there that they'll be qualified for. Keith, have you had any experience with that, and what do you notice? How do we keep these teachers that we train up?
Well, first, I think teaching's a calling, and I think there's IT people that are out there working that want to be a teacher. That even though they make 10 times more than me, they may envy what I get to do each and every day. No, but yes, I think we reach out to those that have that calling to work with kids. And like I said a minute ago, like I have many volunteers that come in from industry that work with kids, and they're great. They are actually great teachers. Mm-hmm. And we're gonna do that. The toughest problem is, how do we get a high school senior, a freshman in college that thinks they're going to go out and make millions of dollars? How do we talk those into being teachers? And then training them to be computer science teachers. I think that's the small part. Like, I think we need teachers. And then once they see the importance of computer science, then they can go into computer science. So.
Yeah.
Just kind of my perspective with it.
You know, I think, and we should get to our call to action here, but I'll do my little bit of one. You know, I have looked at a lot of data where I see that a lot of our kids have an aptitude for technology, and then how many of them have an interest is pretty low. It's usually like a 5-to-1 or a 3-to-1. In other words, 5 kids that have an aptitude for every 1 kid that has an interest. And so I think that exposure earlier on, you know, start them in kindergarten, is going to be monumental, because those that have a calling for teaching will still go into teaching. I firmly believe, because at the end of the day, they're gonna realize what they want to be. And you're absolutely right. It is a calling, but we need them to be prepared to, because I think they would teach anything, right? But wouldn't it be great if they could also teach the technology side? Deborah, I'll start this question for you, and then anything that you think, this is really a question that's more like the call to action, but I want to make sure that we are being actionable as we finish this call. And again, folks, we're at 3 o'clock. We'll be a couple of more minutes here. I hope you're willing to stay on with us. But who should we, or the people on the call today, connect with at the state level, so that they can be advocates for continuing to emphasize computer science? And then what else do you recommend that we can do, whether it's teachers, industry partners, or just interested parents in the future, to advocate for computer science?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think truly, you know, looking at the recommendations in the report, connecting, you know, industry folks really do have a great voice in the state of Tennessee. I know our governor truly does recognize everyone's voice, and so I think that is a perfect thing. But then just to be an advocate for that, I know that collaborating, it seems to me that folks who collaborate with one another, meaning industry folks with post-secondary folks, with people at the state, having those collaborative partnerships to move things forward seem to get a whole lot more steam than a single entity. So instead of just industry getting together to push an agenda forward, or just post-secondary getting together to push an agenda forward, but really having that a collaborative approach. And so to me, that is the best way to get things moving in Tennessee, is to have that collaborative approach when it comes to, you know, wanting to move, you know, IT forward.
Yeah, and on the idea of collaboration, the best collaborators that we have in our state, not the best, but 4 that we have in the state are your Chattanooga Technology Council, your Knoxville Technology Council, your Greater Memphis, and your Greater Nashville Technology Councils. They're the hub. They are the ones that all of them talk to teachers, talk to obviously industry, and anybody else. And if you ask any of those tech councils, because I have asked this question, what is their main issue? It is workforce development, workforce development, workforce development, which means we have to think about the education component. We can't just keep taking people from outside the state and bringing them here. We need to have our homegrown talent, and that's really what we're talking about today. So I really appreciate that, Deborah, and I can't give enough credit to the technology councils that we have here in the state, and now they're collaborating together, and that's amazing. So Alexis, what are some of your call to actions and things as we part today?
Thank you. I want to echo what Deborah said. I think collaboration is key. You know, I lobby in 10 states, and it's much more powerful going into a meeting with lawmakers with a diverse group of stakeholders than you as one employer, you as one teacher. So figure out if you want to advocate locally to your local school district, or if you want to get involved with one of your local tech councils and focus on the advocacy work that's happening around computer science. Most technology councils, and I'm assuming most of you on this call, have advocacy committees. Think about getting involved with that advocacy committee. Think about signing on a letter. Don't discount a well-written letter signed by stakeholders. So having teachers, universities, and job creators signing onto a letter to the governor asking for this, I think is really helpful. But then making sure that we're closely monitoring legislation. If you have any questions about how to do this, or are interested in getting involved, feel free to reach out to me or any of your tech council counterparts.
Great, and we just put up a link there for you if you want to get involved. That's a perfect way. That's our call to action. Meka, what advice do you have for us? What we can do as we move forward?
Sure, I've got three quick things. One is for industry, that I think industry, I would encourage industry to find opportunities to get involved with kids, especially high school kids. If there are opportunities for internships and other opportunities for kids to directly involve them, it doesn't cost you a lot of time or money, but the payoff for the ecosystem that we're trying to build here in Tennessee is tremendous, so that we can start to build some of that talent we need locally in our state. I would even invite industry to rethink the college degree requirement for those who are very capable as software engineers ultimately. So that's point number one. Point number two is I would encourage all of us, industry, education, research, entrepreneurs to write your policymakers and support these upcoming computer science education bills as they come, as they're born out of this report and elsewhere. And the third thing is CS for All, which is csforall.org, has this concept of commitments. And I would invite everyone here to go to csforall.org and click through to commitments and make a commitment to computer science education, whether you're in industry or whether you're in education or whatever. And it can be literally anything that you simply put a date on and publicly state that you are willing to do in the interest of computer science education. Those would be the three things those are my three calls of action to action.
You know, it's terrible, Meka, that you don't have any passion for what you do. A little bit of tongue in cheek, of course, there. Keith, what do you got for us?
Oh, call to action?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think as a teacher, what I've loved is outside groups that have embraced us as computer science. So what Meka is doing is awesome. You know, when I get emails from the Department of Education, when I get TSIN, you know, like when they have embraced what I am doing, you know, that's actually grown. And like, so I think I don't want to exactly echo what Meka said, because what he said was perfect. But when you get all of these people and you get these relationships, like, people value that. People value the industry, the nonprofit, the departments at the state level. As teachers, people value that, and the resources that can be given is invaluable. So I would say just everybody, it's kind of like just everybody jump in and see where you fit in.
I love that. And you know, if you think about all the different components that when we say collaborate, we're talking teachers, we're talking IT professionals, we're talking the students, we're talking parents, we're talking about nonprofits, and we're talking about obviously our government. I haven't met a single person that hasn't been all in, that hasn't had just incredible passion for wanting to make Tennessee at the forefront, not the laggard, but the leader in the field. And I know we have that commitment, and what we've needed is the know-how. And I think this report is a great example of giving us some of that know-how so that we now can be part of the conversation. I know when I wanted to go to a high school and just see what they do, good old Brent Green from Franklin High School, he welcomed me in, and I got to see autonomous vehicles right there on the floor. Unbelievable. I'm still I'm mesmerized by the amazing stuff I've seen out of our kids. And I know that happened because of collaboration and people thinking outside the box. And I think that is really important as we continue to go. I know that we've gone 10 minutes over, and I knew we would. And I want to thank our panelists again, Meka, Keith, Deborah, and Alexis, for taking the time, but also for taking the time to be part of that report and help us get started on this path to leading in computer science, not just in the Southeast, but you know, I think big when I think of Nashville, when I think of Tennessee. I think of amazing things that we're going to be able to do, and it's all because of collaboration. in the end. We've got amazing people that are going to make amazing things happen. And so I think unless anybody has any other parting shots, Alex, is there anything else that you want us to be able to do or say? Everybody's going to get off this call and be excited to make computer science happening in our state. Go see a class. I don't care what grade it is. Go. You will be changed. Trust me. I can't stress that enough. So with that, I guess we did it, folks. Our panel is done. I want to again thank everybody. Thank you for the Greater Nashville Technology Council for thinking of this, and then for Knoxville Technology Council, Chattanooga Technology Council, and the Greater Memphis Technology Council. And for all of you that joined us today, thank you for your time today. And now go make things happen.